You are now entering Maximum Driftcast, the only drifting podcast hosted by a Spanish soccer mom, a 30-year-old silver-haired fox going on 60, and finally, a 200-pound bowl of spaghetti with chimichanga arms.
The champions, we are the champions.
Oh, well, the way that intro shut off was perfect. Nice job, Brian. This is what, 6th week on the job and finally nailed it. Nicely done.
I haven't heard an intro for 6 weeks, so I have no idea what's been going on.
We actually changed the intro song, Sam.
Cool. Is it something by Creed or what?
No, it's actually the Meat Spin. It's the Meat Spin intro song. We just have that looping. So Brian,
right round, baby.
I was hoping, nope.
No,
Too early for singing.
So what happens is actually Brian, Big Balls Brian, was actually accidentally watching it as we were getting ready to do an intro one time, and it just rolled into the start of the show. So we just kept
as one accidentally watches Meat Spin, you know.
Oh yeah. How many counts did you get up to, Big Balls? Too many.
Too many counts.
He was the only one that got the too many on the counter. So, anyways, what's up, Samuel?
Hey Colby, what's up with you, man?
Nada. How much time do we have with you today?
I'm supposed to go to a meeting in 6 minutes, but I'm going to see if I can push that a little bit. But we'll see what happens.
Oh, that's good. I hope you can push it. What's up there, Pac?
Yep.
I'm just chilling right here, man. I'm having myself a little Drift Raft beer. Look at that shit, man.
How much are they paying you, Pac?
All of it.
I was going to say.
Can you tell? I mean,
did you set up some sort of deal that we don't know about? Because you keep on pimping them, and there's stickers in the background, and if you're getting money on this, I don't mind getting some money myself.
Yeah,
is all I'm saying.
Well, I'll send you some of sweet Drift Raft money. Don't worry about it.
All right, cool.
It's almost as good as NOS Energy money, but we'll see. Paco knows best.
Yep. So guess what, people on the internet who are watching? I mean, if you're watching, obviously you already saw that they have a couple gentlemen behind us.
Don't you usually have gentlemen behind you, Paco?
Paco, why are you doing that? Paco, come on, dude. Paco he just threw the double bird. I think that's his auto defense mechanism.
It's an autoerotic
asphyxiation.
There you go. Thanks, Sam.
Erotic asphyxiation.
You know that very good.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm very learned.
So go ahead, Paco. What were you gonna say before you gave us a double bird?
But this very good two gentlemen that are next to us, not behind us. We have our buddies right here, Matthew Dell, Formula Drift, Southwest Drift, I'm sorry, I have a little too many drinks already.
Oh my God, Paco.
Southwest Drift, Round 4, Pro-Am champion, Matthew Dell from Las Vegas, Nevada. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Who's next to you, Corey?
Oh, next to me is the I want to say soft spoken, but he's far from it. Former bodybuilding champion, former roller derby, and he just throws. Look at those meat pipes. If you guys aren't watching on the YouTube, he just threw up some mean flexes.
You're missing out.
Yeah, he threw up some mean flexes on the jumbotron here. But
it's Garret from Garret Turbos.
Yeah, the owner and creator of Garret Turbos.
So what's it like inventing the turbocharger, Garret?
It's a real spin.
He's got dad jokes too.
Nice dad jokes. Nicely done. But Garret Nikolich, which we were actually just discussing this, how are we going to actually introduce you and what have you all done? And you could start off with how long you been in drifting for? That's another intro in itself.
Yeah, I don't know. I accidentally bought a 240 in 2002, and they started doing little mini competitions outside of the city of Pittsburgh around that time, and that was the beginning and the end of everything in my life because it all became everything drifting after that. So 2006, I moved to the West Coast. By 2010, I was with Forrest Wang starting what became Get Nuts Lab. And then as of recently, I've become an independent contractor of sorts, or a lost drifter amongst ways.
A lost drifter.
So yeah,
so
I just didn't know how to introduce you, but that was perfect because I know you've been doing a lot of stuff. So obviously you got in drifting for quite some years, went to Forrest Wang, Get Nuts, helped them with that. Crew Chief of the Year in 2015, and now you kind of run your own shop building drift cars. And actually, didn't you build mats or help facilitate that in some degree?
So it was this this really interesting opportunity. this guy's like, hey man, I got all these parts and you know how to install them, and he dumped them at my shop and came back like 3 weeks later and he had a race car. So that was, I don't know, what, April of this year or so.
That's pretty
I
quick
don't know.
turnaround.
Yeah, you know, a lot of like hiccups in the road just because I went from being used to working in like a fully functional facility to having like a small tool cart toolbox and having to like buy everything that I need or be like, hey man, can like we get this really cool tool that will like make my life so much easier, or like trying to come up with some method to like get things done, you know?
Yep.
I'm kind of starting out from like zero again in my own way, but just like honestly wanting to like let the industry or let whatever's out there like come to me, see what opportunities are out there. Like a lot of stuff has like come up, a lot of offers have like come through, but like I kind of just want to like sit back and see until like the best thing for me like shows up. And I know like that kind of like waits you out of maybe like the better opportunities, but like I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I like the offers should come to my table.
Wow,
like
nice.
I kind of feel like for the first time like I've kind of made a name for myself. So
Sam, with that being said, how do you feel, Sam?
I feel pretty good. I'd like to not have to leave momentarily,
What?
but I've also wanted to talk to Garret or someone from Garret's team from 2015 for literally the existence of this show. So can we talk about that?
How much time do you have first, Sam?
I've got enough time to party.
Okay, so did you just push it back just a hair, a scotch?
No, I mean they're running late, so it's all good.
Oh, perfect.
does this depend on how much information you can extort out of me?
Extort? I don't know. I'm not trying to extort anything. I'm a goddamn journalist.
All right. Well, let's. So you said you're probably gonna have to go have the show. Sam?
Eventually, probably like in
Okay.
half an hour or so.
Well, let's,
Okay,
let's
perfect.
let's cut in the meat. I know Sam had a lot of questions for Garret, and then we'll go a lot further with you, Matt. But let's just get Sam's beef against Garret.
No, I don't have any
There's
beef. There's no beef
I'm
against
just kidding.
Garret. I don't
I'm
know
just
what that
kidding.
is.
I'm just kidding.
Why are you setting us up for failure, Paco?
Come on,
I just want to know. So Garret was part of the Forrest Wang team in 2015.
It's called journalism.
What?
It's called journalism. You know, I have to create drama here.
That's not journalism, Paco. That's sensationalism. This isn't WWE. This
Paco's
is the most
full of
serious
fake news
show.
today.
I'm the
That's-
fake news.
Look, this is the most serious Driftcast show that has ever been made. All right, guy.
That's true. That's
All right.
totally
No,
true.
but he's part of the Forrest Wang team from 2015.
Yep.
And we've often talked about that situation here and its effect on the drift world.
And literally everybody
now we
else.
finally have someone that was on the team. So like what went down that fateful Formula Drift New Jersey day from your side?
Well, should we give a breakdown on what happened leading up to that, just in case?
No, because the breakdown implies that there is a like, I guess if you can do it in a neutral way.
Well, let's
but
do
the
that. Let's just
idea
say
is-
we're talking about the infamous battle, and it's actually, once again,
Yeah.
that was the most popular downloaded episode was the Forsberg Wang
It's
Gate,
called the Forsberg Wang Gate.
which was when Chris Forsberg and Forrest Wang had a major incident that caused drama throughout the whole drifting community because Forrest was in lead, Forsberg was in chase, and there was contact coming off the bank. Some people were saying that Forrest broke or overslowed, and then somebody was saying Forsberg was going too fast and he didn't decel, and they ended up making contact. So blames were being pushed upon each other, and it was really never talked about because we tried reaching out to Forrest, we tried talking to a couple people from the team, but everybody was like radio silence, didn't hear anything until literally
2
Garret-
years.
Yeah, 2 years in the making. So hopefully it's like let it all loose.
But I mean, as far as the concrete facts that are concerned of the day is that there was a battle between Forsberg and Wang, and the judges ruled in favor of Forsberg, and people were upset because it looked much like Forsberg had hit Wang. But then there's of course the other side of the argument that said Wang had broken something and was spinning. So let's just back up though, and Garret, what was your guys' perspective of that day?
All right, so
All right.
I'm gonna drop into the previous battle slightly with Tyler for a second because I think that was like a really cool situation too, and that got zero media because of what happened after.
Right.
Forrest had been, doing this line coming off the bank where he was like practically throwing it backwards before, in the transition to the next outer zone. And it was something that he had done in previous years, but this car, that generation, the suspension and the tuning and the stuff that was in it, it actually allowed him to go like even further. And, when the heat that year, I think, like the side bite and just the way the car was handling was really pushing him wide, and we liked it. Like, as our crew, as our guys, like, we were a group of individuals that were very focused on style. Like, I know we have a judge criteria, but, like, at the time, like, we were with a group of guys that felt like we were bringing, like, our style, the way the car looks, the way he drives, and making that, like, something cool. So,
which the judges rewarded pretty often. They gave him first qualifying points, I think, a few times that year.
Absolutely.
Many
And
times,
awesome, so those battles were very, there was some very interesting stuff going on in that in that area. Now, you have other team spotters that obviously know that they're bracketed there that potentially go up against you. They're watching those battles. They're all seeing what's going on. There were rumors of like tactics like going into that, but I mean, that's like, CNN shit. So, we're going about like our run, and I'm when Forrest follows good, when he has those like actual, like when he can get out of that like shell of like, FD shit and actually like follow and grind someone's door, it's beautiful. It's amazing. And that was another thing that got thrown out was his follow run with Forsberg was like one of the most phenomenal follow runs of like the year. I mean, it was awesome, and again, because of the later contact, that got thrown out the window. Now, so I'm like, in Jersey, there's the guardrail on the inside that all the crew stands at, and I'm standing there, and like I'm like red, like I'm like, holy crap, like we really have a chance at this. Like, we always have this rivalry, and everyone thinks you can't beat Forsberg. Forsberg can't be beat. He beat Alec and Forrest one year in Texas. Like, so that was like a double slap in the face to me. So like, like we have all this going on. So like, I don't look at it as anything other than camaraderie. Obviously, I can be pretty overspoken and talk a lot of shit at times. But just the way that I feel now, watching them take off down that line, the first thing I saw was Forsberg choke the entry. And that's where my stance is on it, and that's where it ends. Because I know as a driver what happens to you. Corey, what happens to you when you enter the first turn, you realize you blew the entry and the car in front of you is going to pull 4 car lanes. Your heart sinks into your chest and you feel like you're going to die, and your only instinct is to push the gas pedal into the floor, turning in and hopelessly pulling towards the car in front of you.
Damn, Corey.
Well, no, yeah.
Is that really what happens?
Yeah. No, I was just figuring out what position, in the chase or lead position.
Like when you're in the chase position
Right.
and you realize
and
that
there's a huge gap, you're gonna run shallow and full throttle.
But like you just
Right.
instinctively you're freaking out.
I guess you try to catch up, right? I mean, if you...
So I'm watching the run right now, though. What do you mean by he biffed the entry?
I just feel like he biffed the entry. I
mean, he initiates very low.
Right.
And anyone can
And-
look this up online right now. If you just type in Forsberg versus Wang, you'll find that it's the first thing.
So-
At about like 2:13. Like he initiates at about the same time, but definitely low on the bank.
Right, and it looks like a hard catch-up line to the bottom. And so my impression of this stuff, like up to the point, like I look at that point and I see what happened, and I'm like, man, like he's really shallow lining. And again, like I'm running in my head, I'm like, man, we could actually win this battle. Like we are actually in this battle. Like this is really epic. Then that happens. I don't need to go into
What happened? No. What happens though? That's the most important thing that's occurred though. Is that
cool? So Forrest in the lead position overcooks the bank just a hair, which that stadium floor, like part of figuring out the line in Jersey, a major part of figuring out the line in Jersey is how you come down that bank. Coming down onto the stadium floor late, incorrectly, with too much angle, it will destroy your car. It'll knock alignment. Jersey, we chase alignments the whole race. Like it's just every team does. It sucks. We got so he cooked it, went down, hit the floor, threw a bunch of angle, got hit. Snap back, carnage ensues. Now from my position of it, like. He practically pulled out of it, right? Like that was uncalled for, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not getting out of my skin yet. Like I'm calm and composed. I'm like, you know what, man? I'm telling him on the radio. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we got this. Like that kind of just seemed like way overcooked, whatever. And like my spotter's on the radio, and he's like, I don't know, man. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're not up here. You don't know what's going on. I mean, there was other conversations had, and again, I'm not going to go into detail with that crap, but.
Yeah.
You were imposing that something on Forrest's car had broken on the stadium
Right, and
floor.
this is information after the incident. Like there were just photos from
Correct.
someone I don't recall that showed a rear
So-
wheel that looked extremely out of tow, I believe.
So, yeah, well,
David Carey supplied
almost,
that photo, right?
But yes. So here's the thing: the impact to the stadium floor likely broke the front track link on the rear suspension at that time. However, in the past, with that car in our program, we had completed runs, and nobody was the wiser to the fact that we were missing one control arm.
Right.
So with the other pieces holding it together, and the fact that like a track like Jersey, that would have been the right rear wheel, we probably would have finished the run with almost no noticeable factors except for the second transition and the course exit. We wouldn't have blown a wheel off, like nothing would have happened. We've broken that
Yeah.
arm before and completed runs, and like no
Wait.
one was ever the wiser to it.
Do you agree though that during that transition off the bank that Forrest did kind of bury it? Because like I'm watching it again over and over right now, and just to me it looks like. Well, I mean, it just looks like he's not transitioning. It looks like the car is broken. It looks like something is not moving correctly in his car.
It kind of looks like the wheel. It does like this little wobbling.
You got to understand.
Yeah.
You know, how do you crawl on the floor with 3 out of 4 legs? I mean, it doesn't work so
Right.
good. You know, like
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. You're missing something. You know,
Right.
Like, you're gonna get weird toe characteristics. All sorts of things are gonna happen. Is that?
But would you say that his car is not 100% and that something may have caused him to? I guess the question that needs to be deduced right now is: do you believe that he made an error, whether mechanical or otherwise, in that he was in that section too long?
The other time that we broke that link was because of like a late clutch kick, bad timing kind of incident, and like the inertia busted the link. My guess is, you know, if you clock it backwards to about that angle and you're trying to clutch back out of it, you're gonna put a lot of torque, you know, into that radius. Like I said, I don't know if it would have made him. It's hard to say if somebody's slowed when somebody else is coming at it faster. You're throwing,
Right.
you know, things at 2 different speeds that are moving, and it's hard to assess the speed of a moving object against a moving object.
But link broken or not,
Whoa.
let's push that aside for a second. Do you believe that Forrest in the lead, you know, quote unquote, parked it? Like, did it look like he was stuck in that angle for too long? Did it look
No.
like he wasn't transitioning?
But, you know, as you know, I don't know, as you probably watch like Ryan and Chris drive more than any other driver. I've watched this guy drive more in the last,
Yeah.
you know, so I'm used to seeing him do these kinds of maneuvers and do these kind of things. It's uncouth to like what like FD wants or like what the program wants. Like I understand that, and honestly, we as a team understood that like full on. You know, we accepted that. You know, we weren't doing what they wanted us to do, and we weren't building and making things the way that everybody wanted them. But we were doing it, you know, our
Right.
way. You know, and
Do you think he would have recovered from that drift?
do I think he would have?
Yeah, let's say he was running alone right there, and Chris wasn't behind him. Do you think he would have
Not-
recovered
not
from that
only-
without losing too much momentum?
I mean, that's a gray area. What you're depending on.
Yeah,
too
of course,
much.
without losing too much momentum. Right. Yeah, I guess that you shouldn't play in maybes there, but
Right, exactly. My opinion of that, honestly, even with the link broke after the hit, he could have still clutched it, and it wouldn't even have looked like he straightened. He could have burned it right to the back turn
Right.
and kept going if he wanted
Right.
to. But like,
but that's
honestly,
definitely offline from what is ideal for that
Sure,
section.
sure.
Throwing in extra amounts of style or not, a broken part in your car though may have contributed to this quote unquote parking it, this extended drift in this section. But it, like the thing that I think is important to establish after 2 years of shit on the internet is that something was broken on the car, and in your opinion,
Sure.
even though maybe it wouldn't have affected him, it may have affected him.
I think it was a combination.
Here, as you guys are discussing that, Big Balls is going to throw the actual chase run from Forsberg
let's-
versus Wang on the Jumbotron
Let's
right
watch
now.
it right now. And
So I don't know if you guys could see that. So here we go. This is going to be Wang leading,
With the
Forsberg
chase
and
car.
Chase.
Utilizing the lead car.
I just think that it's
point.
important to establish whether or not
Here we go.
something
Come
did in
out on
fact
top.
break on the car, which it sounds like you said it
Forrest
did, but you're
Wang,
saying that it
a
may
feint
not have
entry
affected
initiating into
his
the
run.
bank. Forrest Wang throws it in. Forsberg falling
Garrett.
down there quite a bit, coming now
you
into
guys
that
hear me?
first front
Yep.
clip.
Why aren't you talking?
As
Because
Forrest
we're
Wang-
analyzing the run, we're going to actually rewind it again.
Flipping point.
Rewind that again, Brian.
Here we
That's not the best for audio
All right,
listeners.
that's okay, Sam. All right, so Garrett, what are you kind of seeing
So, like,
as after watching the run for the first time?
Entry, major correction in the follow. Now, so for a long time, that first part coming down the bank was very unclear to me, mostly because when he was coming down the bank, what I noticed is it looked like Forsberg just beelined. What I kind of started to realize later through seeing it is that actually Forrest overcooked it and overran the zone. So
Did you saw Forsberg's onboard camera coming out of the smoke?
you know,
'Cause
honestly,
that's the other thing. I mean, like, I
you
think
guys are asking me about all this media, and to be perfectly
it's
honest with
fine.
you,
I mean,
out of
like,
everybody directly involved with this, I promise you, I wrote into it the least.
Okay.
Remember that, like, I followed, you know, a name and a team and a program around the country for like 4 years at that time. And I had no intention of stopping. I had no intention of like slowing down. Like, I thought we were on the road to, like, you know, bettering everything with what we were involved with.
Yeah.
When he announced against like my will that he wanted to retire, like, I wasn't happy. I may have never expressed that to him directly, like recently or otherwise, but like, you know, a part of on that day, in a lot of ways, like a big part of what I had created or helped create or however you want to look at it died. And that impact was way greater to me than like what happened on the track. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was talking to Paco earlier, and I was like, if I saw Chris, dude, I'd give
just
the
to
guy
get
a
in
high
there
five.
for a sec though, like that is what happened on the track was one thing. What happened after the fact is what shook the community so heavily and still continues to shake it.
Right. You know, like I said, I was at the table when that discussion was held, and I was formally against it. I was against it to the bitter end. I told him that was, you know, not ideal. I can't remember exactly what I said because I was probably really drunk. But like, I sincerely remember being very against it, being very upset about it, and like, you know,
And what was the primary motivation? Because and of course you can only speak for Forrest so much, but why
right.
did
Yeah,
you
I mean,
feel like
obviously,
it was
I can't
time to
speak for
quit?
Forrest at all. I can tell you what I've seen. I'm speaking
Right.
for myself.
Good.
But why
makes
in this moment when, yes, he may agree that, or yes, he might think that he didn't deserve to lose this battle, but it has been established that there was a broken part in his car, and for whatever reason, the judges did vote this one way over the way he wanted. Why was this time to quit immediately, regardless of obligations to sponsors and the unspoken obligation to fans and all that shit? Like, why this moment? Did he think that it was a good idea to leave?
You know, from what I remember was it was just like putting my, you know, quote unquote, putting my foot down and making an example. You know, maybe if I do, you know, other people will speak up. He felt that he was on the wrong side of something. He was a part of something that, like, you know, was not to say his conspiracy or like against him, but like, you know, he wanted to be a top competitor and he put everything in his life to do it, you know, and put his life force into it. And so did several other guys that were involved with us.
But I think he was a top competitor. That's the thing. I mean, he was always on the top 5, top 6. He was, was always doing good. He was one of the most liked drivers. I mean, I still think he's
Fan-wise, he was definitely one of the most, but that's kind of a different side depending on being maybe the slowest guy, because Forrest was never like incredibly fast around the track. He was the most stylish dude around the track, which, you know, was a sighting in itself. And then you have these other cars that have tons of grip in it, and but he was a competitor, a top competitor. But once again, he was a fan favorite. But a lot of the guys would chase Forrest and be like, man, he's much slower than everybody else, but he throws tons of angle, and sometimes he's tough to chase. And
Well,
I think it's absolutely a pleasure to watch.
Oh,
but-
for sure.
But that then is all kind of thrown out with the incidents that then took place after this run.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, you know, I'm just along for the ride, and it was pretty miserable.
That sounds like obviously
not-
you were against this decision too.
I yelled at Matt yesterday because he didn't want to take his second qualifying pass because I told him it was unethical. Because he had scored such a high score, he felt he didn't want to go again. And I said, you know what, that's unethical. Like, there's just certain things you don't do, you know, that professionally or otherwise, like, and I just felt like that was not an ethical thing to do, and I wasn't for it. But, you know, I was taken with it, and I had to ride that out. And believe me, like the last after that Montreal and to finish the season was like, you know, flying around in like a empty, you know, or living in an
Yeah.
empty apartment. Like there's just
You know,
nothing.
the relationship is over, but
yeah,
you kind of
it's
you
done,
haven't
but
moved
like
out of
we
the
got to
apartment
ride
yet.
this
yeah.
out, and it was hard, and there was nowhere to go after that. You know, you
Do you-
build a shop, a name, reputation. You stop.
Do you think that Forrest would do anything differently today, knowing the impact that this has had on the team and you and the community as a whole?
Yeah, I know. I think some events in Forrest's life have changed, recently.
Right.
So, I think he would probably do things otherwise. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Some people.
You can't
some
speak. I know you
people-
can't speak directly.
Some
for
people
us,
live in regret. Some people don't. When I'm done with whatever I'm thinking about, I move on to the next thing, and that's how I
Right.
am. I can get really pissed off and be a real big shit talker for about 5 minutes, and then like after that, like I'm pretty over it. I got to get it out. I'm a venter. Once it's vented, it's good.
Well, I just got one question about this whole thing. Is like after the whole incident happened, Forsberg was pretty vocal. A lot of people were vocal publicly on the internet and things like this, and everybody was speaking their opinions and what they felt happened, but nothing ever came out of you guys.
I felt I know that one of my teammates at the time, Jeff, had spoke out quite loudly. I just know that in the past, like the code of conduct for FD and for whatever, like it's just not professional to be on the internet talking shit. I can't tell you how many Facebook messengers, requests, crap that like I got, didn't look at, didn't respond to, got tagged in, don't care about. Like I was there. So like, what are you going to tell me? What do you want to ask me for? Like I know what I saw. I know what happened
Yeah.
in my day. That was my job at the time.
But that was kind of like the thing that caused such a stir in the community is that you have one side of the party saying, hey, this is what we felt happened. Just let's get some understanding here. Look like something broke. This is why it happened. What did you guys think? Give us your perspective. But it was, radio silence. And I think that's what caused the confusion. And I remember Forsberg actually telling us, Sam, that it's like, he literally got like death threats.
Well, yeah, and that was the major problem I
of-
had. And of course, I'm unfortunately not neutral in the situation because Forsberg's kind of the one that brought me up in the sport, so to say. So I can't remain completely neutral. And also, of course, I was with the guy when he's just like getting these long, like not always terribly worded. A lot of the guys were in all caps lock and just wrote just angry, death threaty things. But then there's people that wrote like well thought out ish, like 3 paragraphs messages being like, hey, I'm not going to like you anymore. I'm not going to follow you. I'm not going to support you because what you did to Forrest is wrong. And like that shit, of course, I think is maybe hurts worse than the death threat shit because it's like he, in this situation, I believe, didn't really do anything wrong. Granted, I know you and your team and his team had, of course, had rivalries, and one of the members of his team, who's not a member of the team anymore, did, of course, give an unfortunate bird to your team. but I mean, that's all that aside. Like the big negative that I drew from the situation in at least my personal drifting career was that there was silence on your side against all the internet troll army who not necessarily was mobilized by you guys. Like they were there regardless, but was and I don't want to say enabled, that's the wrong term too. I don't know, they were not shut down, and I think they could have been shut down by one message from Forrest saying like, hey, you know what, I may not agree with this run and how it was judged, but the big thing is that we're all here because we love the sport. And Forsberg has been a buddy of mine regardless of rivalries. We've worked together for years and so on and so forth. And that message never came and still hasn't come years later. And I'm happy to now finally today on this show, I've established that at least something was broken on Forrest's car. And whether or not you believe that caused it, it is good to know that did happen. There's more
happened.
facts. There's more facts in the pile of things. And unfortunately, this situation.
You can dig this rabbit hole so deep, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
well, and that's the thing is like I'd like to. Hopefully, this provides some amount of closure in the situation because
Right.
it is now years past.
You mentioned, I think the answer to the problem earlier was, it was a fan base that was very angry about something. But we didn't answer back. I personally didn't answer back because I was embarrassed as hell. I know every little bit about what happened inside, detail, and out. And actually, in Texas, I gave Ray a beer and a high five, and that was a pretty cool deal. So you know what I mean. We were on the podium in Texas with Chris on Alex's team. So that was that cleared up, I guess, a little bit. I don't know how they feel, but I'd give everybody a hug and go to the bar and have a shot of whiskey. But it's just that's who I am. But I mean, honestly, it was a really embarrassing thing for me. Now, Forrest is an individual as far as media and outlets. One of the biggest holes in his program was media. The guy didn't do any. He's like a caveman to the electronical age in a sense that he's one of those guys that You won't catch him on like posting on Facebook, posting on Instagram. He doesn't do that. Like, he's not that guy. You guys were following him. You were following pictures and stuff about our stories and our stuff. That wasn't him that was writing it.
I had actually had hoped to do a driver-on-driver with him at the next round. which I had tried to segue into it with the Matt Field one, but then.
I heard that story too. So
as events unfolded.
But still, it's just one of those things. Like, I think the fan base definitely wanted a response. And that's something that didn't happen. And it was just out of strictly, also, there were some meetings that were had after that about the situation with the industry and about what to do. And they made it very clear about how they wanted the situation handled. So, I don't want to say that there was like any kind of legal documents drawn up, but they asked him to, do something a certain way and proceed forward, and he did. So. Right. We obviously he got talked back into it, and on we went to Montreal anyways. So, that was a whole. That's a dark part of my life. Honestly, I'm a pretty positive guy, but that was like when everything comes pouring down, that was a really rough couple of months for me.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what?
Regardless, I appreciate you coming to the show and discussing it as much as you're able to, of course.
Yeah.
Well, somebody, Hunter Fontenot brought something up in the YouTube chat, and he says, I feel like the Forsberg-Wang rivalry was one of the big selling points to watch the show of FD, because that's what it really needed. It was like NASCAR, and FD took a hit by losing Wang from the points of views as well. But like, once again, that was like one of the biggest rivalries that year. People were looking for Forsberg and Wayne to go against each other in top 16, top 8, whatever it is, the next round. But it created that suspense that everybody was kind of waiting for, and it was almost similar to like the Justin Pollock Daigo in Florida, where it was like, man, people want to see them run again. And it was very stressful, I'm sure, on both parties, between you and Forsberg and things like that. But you kind of look at like, man, could FD maybe handled that a little bit differently too? Maybe FD should have talked to both you guys and said, we're going to put our own personal press release out about the situation, and it keeps both parties out, and they're the mediators in that, rather than having you guys be the vocal person, look like the bad guys, or Forsberg being, it's like, hey, let's talk to both parties. We'll come up to an agreement. We'll put out a press release, what happens, and just squash it right there. But nobody really did anything other than Forsberg kind of speaking up, giving his point of view. And I guarantee you, if you would have had your guys' point of view publicly put out at that point, because at one time we were talking to Dave from Toge Factory, and once again, at one point he said he did want to chat about it, but he's like, I just don't know how far I can go with things already still so sensitive and hot right now. But he kind of gave us his perspective, very lightly and very, soft worded. But once again, if that information was out there, it would have still solved the problem, but I think it wouldn't necessarily affect the rivalry or the show necessarily going forward from there. But once again, I think it would just cause the fans to chill out a little bit and not say it was this person's fault, this person's fault, F everybody, we're done with the sport, because it's, once again, NOS Energy, they're the biggest sponsors. Because you look at the two competitors at this point. Forrest Wang, even though he was an underdog, everybody looked at him as the underdog. Forrest is probably one of the best drifters in the world, not even put him up next to James Dean. He is very robotic, most stylish, coolest car. And you have Forsberg, which everybody's like, this is the poster child of Formula Drift, probably has the largest budget in drifting. He crashes, but they still give him the win.
Hold on, largest budget in drifting? That's
well, no, but literally,
that's how people see it.
They might think that, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, Sam. It's a perspective, because you have a NOS Energy, big rig, two-car teams.
There's also of course, the if you're at the top, then you're not really going to gain many fans when you're already at the top. People like you, or there's a large way to gain enemies.
Well, that's what I was saying, Sam. Is when you have somebody that is prospectively at the top, crashing into an underdog. Once again, this is all perspective based, because there's no physical information. Then you're going to look like the bad guy, unfortunately, because you just took out the underdog superhero. Once again, it could have been easily resolved just by both parties, either finding a mediator through FD or just both parties speaking up again.
I know, obviously, this situation inspired change in FD, with Ryan Lantain being in the booth trying to describe every judging call from then on.
Literally, that's what you guys influenced Lantain to be up there and describing every single run. It really changed the sport quite a bit.
Sorry, Ryan. I'm sorry, man. It wasn't my idea.
I think it's been good for the sport as a whole. Unfortunately, though, at this point, I do have to bow out of this conversation. But I do appreciate you spending the time to do that. Hopefully, you guys move into greener pastures if you want from here, but you don't have to. Keep talking for the next few hours. And congrats, Matthew, on your win last night. Sorry we didn't get to talk about it more, buddy.
Not a problem.
I'm sure you guys are going to get into it, and also it's a sweet Metal Gear Solid throwback Vegas Drift shirt. I'm into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I have my own opinion on New Jersey. We were actually there that year, and from where we were sitting in the stands, the car looked typical Forrest. It looked just like the run before and the run before that. And it was, just what he does. He throws crazy angle through there. Whether something was broken on the car or not, from our section at least, it looked like, Forrest was just going to pull out of it, keep driving like he was, and just pull off, typical Forrest, big angle, big style driving. When Forrest shows up, he drives for the fans and, spectators, puts on a show. And then you have guys out there that, want to drive for the win and pretty much the win only, and kind of sacrifice some of the style and things out there.
Yeah.
But also that opens up the debate deeper, which is a rabbit hole I unfortunately can't go down, but these guys can, is that can you follow that wild style? So you can say that, or you can say that Wang threw that angle in just about every other time and looked like other runs, sure, but you sometimes cannot follow a run that has that much angle if you just look at the speeds of Forsberg and Wang exiting that corner. Let's assume that he wasn't going to park it and he was going to pull out of that. It still is a 15-mile-an-hour difference in speed. So that, of course, leads back to the major debate of style versus speed, which, of course, they have now kind of concluded that you need both to some varying degree. And I'm sure what kind of inspired Wang to leave in the first place was he believed that style was king and that was all that mattered.
Yeah.
And the debate goes on and on and on and on. But you guys continue with that. I'm out. Good to talk to you guys, and hopefully I'll catch up with you both soon. And Corey and Paco, I leave this conversation to you.
We'll take
All right.
Cobra.
Thanks,
don't worry.
Sam. I'll try to come up with all the dad jokes and bad questions.
Yeah, I need a lot of dad jokes, a lot of puns if you can. And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Well, have fun, Sam. We'll see you soon, dude.
Bye,
Thanks.
Sam.
See ya.
All right. So, Garrett, kind of leading off of that, has Forrest broke that particular part before and completed a run? Like, has that been a common issue at all, or have you guys?
In testing, yes, so he has completed with that part damaged. And
Is
actually,
that-
we've seen that happen with, I remember, Hengushi blew, 1 or 2 links off in Atlanta one year and, finished a battle, and everyone was mind blown.
Right.
It happens.
So, just out of curiosity, but before we move on, if you were judging that, how would you judge it? Let's say you were in one of the judges' spots and you see those runs. How would you judge it?
So it's like this. I'm wearing a Vegas Drift T-shirt. I live in Vegas. I'm involved with a series called
Right.
Vegas Drift. I got offered your job to judge the Vegas Drift series.
Right.
I denied that job, and I offered to be technical director. And the reason is that I don't think that I can unbiasedly judge anything drifting
Right.
at all. I will not judge drifting. I mean, you can ask me, but I built this dude's car. Am I going to sit up there in the judge's tower and every time he goes by not give him 10 style points? Or not even, maybe not just be that big of a douche,
Right.
but just subconsciously it's like, oh man, shit, Matt, that was a really crappy run, dude. What are the other guys writing down? I got to give him more points.
Right.
I'm only allowed to give 10, 12.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Well, once
you know,
again,
like-
you're a team player at that point.
Sure.
You're 100% behind the guys you support. The thing for me is we're at Arizona event and 90% of the dudes out there were Arizona drivers. I think we may have had 4 people from out of state: Matt, Brendan Sorensen,
And
Well,
there was
and then-
a fellow from Minnesota
Yep.
that runs for M-Spec. I think
Stucky.
So out of
that- I had
24
that
drivers, 4 of them were from
Out of
out of
state.
state of Arizona. The thing is the way I look at it when I go into a judging situation is I can't look at the person driving the car. I have to just look on the specific run itself, and that's the only way I can actually separate it. Because there was sometimes where it's like, oh, here's my best friend running, and he spins out. I'm like, can I just get him 1 point? You know what I mean? What can I do to have him try to salvage this run? Or you look over, you're like, hey, is that a completion? But it's like, you know what? You got to remove the fact that you know this person on track, and you're just looking physically at the car itself and what it's doing on track.
Well, I saw you when Keith was did his run, and he made some mistakes, and I saw you literally just shaking your head because obviously you want the guy who's helping you in your program, you wanted to go on, but you had to vote against him, and it's part of being honest and being
realistically
neutral,
about that, I had to give Keith literally one of the lowest scores out of that, considering all that. Because here's
Yeah.
the thing: is everybody equally invest as much time, effort, blood,
Yeah.
sweat, tears, money. Everything. They're just sacrificing everything to be there.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to look at as, do you know what? everybody's doing everything they can to be here. Why would it be fair for one of us
Yeah.
to say he deserves a bonus point? Because it is unfair.
But not only that, like I personally, if I was being judged when I know I did something that was wrong, and suddenly like I realize that somebody's giving me a higher score than I deserve, that would be actually more offensive. Like wait, no, I want to be judged the
Yeah.
exact same way than everybody.
And so Matt, you were obviously driving there and you ended up winning the event. How did you feel the judging? And I'm sure you watched a few runs. How did you personally feel the event flowed yesterday, comparing to obviously where you started and where you finished?
Honestly, I feel like it went super solid from the day. The timeline was pretty much stuck to. Everything was on time. We didn't have any major issues. No one spilled oil all over the track. Things weren't shut down for a while. We had a little bit of rain. However, other than that was just a little slow down there. But other than that, qualifying went extremely well. Top 16. The brackets went extremely quick. It was just enough time to change tires between, your runs and then you're back up. We didn't even shut the car off pretty much since qualifying. It just stayed running all day, throw tires on it, keep driving.
So that was the thing I was going to ask you first. Is kind of, obviously you got a bunch of information from Garrett. You've been competing in drifting for quite a few years, correct? How long you been driving for?
Started in 2010. Won the first competition in 2011 at Top Drift Round 4. Had some medical issues here and there, which kind of put me out of the driver's seat for 2 to 3 years. And then been back in it for, I think, the last 3 seasons, just off and on, building a car. I love building as much as I do driving, which is kind of my downfall.
I hate building.
Yeah,
so much.
So now that I got the builder figured out and someone who can really just dial the car in, I tell them, hey, this is my issue. What can we do to fix it? And I get back in the driver's seat the next time. The car's solid. It builds confidence. You can't complain about that, and it produces results, obviously.
So leading up to this event, you started competing. A couple years back, you competed in what series? Top Drift and Vegas Drift, or did you drive in any other series?
I was Top Drift for a while, and then I started doing Vegas Drift mainly because it was just more local.
Right.
But yeah, we did All-Star Bash, the fun events as well, and then some practice days in between there.
Nice. And how, from when you first started to now, talk about kind of development of the car. Obviously, you have Garrett, who has tons of experience, because you are currently running an S14 with the 2J Wisefab.
It's a 1J, yeah, but
1J?
it still has a GTX 3582, small exhaust side, and it's just super responsive. But I started with a $2,500 S14 with a KA in it, still sitting outside my house.
Nice.
Like, sentimental value. It's completely gutted, nothing left of it, and I just can't bring myself to demolish it. So went KA, then SR, then built SR, then a 2J, and then we kind of just threw this car together. We were building it as a mild street car, and we decided that the other cars that we were building at the time just weren't going to be ready in time, and I didn't want to rush them. So instead of rushing a car and putting something out that wasn't quite complete or what we wanted to build out of that caliber car, we just kind of converted the street car into a competition car, called it a day, and started performing.
One thing that we talk about quite a bit on the shows, and kind of you just give the history on kind of what you ran, is the progression of the sport. From when you actually got in it until now. How do you feel the progression of the sport is from, once again, your first competition to this competition? Obviously, you have somebody that's probably more familiar with that S chassis than most, tuners nowadays, especially with the Wisefab, because you were one of the first guys to use Wisefab in competition, and now everybody's using it. So you probably have more time on Wisefab than anybody else.
Yeah, it was a really funny, thing that actually Forrest always used to make fun of me for, was that when that came on in the market and he decided when he decided he wanted to use Wisefab, I was against it. I was like, no, I can make some other stuff. There's other ways. I just don't think this is all it's cracked up to be. Why do you need that? If you're throwing that much angle, you're not, so it's just that kind of thing. And it's actually funny that we wanted polar opposites. I was like, okay, you know what? Let's do the rear, because I think it'll make the car a lot faster. And, that's where I wanted to go. And he's like, no, I need the front. I need to throw more angle. And I'm like, okay, well, and then just, developing that. One of the things that people don't realize about, the FD legal kits, anything Wisefab released that says FD legal on it is somehow compromising its own design to fit into the FD rulebook, which means that something on the kit has been compromised, from its original design. So a lot of these guys feel these weird issues, especially the S guys. Here's the trick to S chassis. You guys want to go fast in an S chassis with Wisefab on the front? measure your cross member to the ground 1 inch. If the car is higher than like an inch off the ground from the cross member, that shit binds and it doesn't work. So
Technical advice right there. Pro tip.
The way the gates and everything's designed in that steering, like if it's not like absurdly low, like Rocket Bunny radius fender cut high wheel dumped, like you've seen the guys that look like clowns at the Wisefab with the fenders that don't fit and like, you know, all the crap that goes along with it. Like it's pretty much like, I mean, look how great like James Dean car came out. Like that thing's a Wisefab bodied S15. Like everything fits perfect. It's flushed out. Like it looks good. That's pretty much what they had in mind with that kit when they designed it. I feel like, I mean, it's the biggest drop knuckle that anyone's ever made for a 240. It drops more than GK Tech. It drops more than, you know, PBM. Like, not that that's like, you know, like some great statistic, but if you drop the spindle, you're going to have to drop your car. And if you're not going to run your car low, then you have a lot of guys out there that modify Wisefab, which doesn't really make any sense to me because it's kind of like, okay, I want to take something that works and then make it so I can do it against its will. Like, well, it works, but the car needs to be higher, so let's lift the car and bend the arms and do different things to make this work. And it just seems like, you know, ignorance to me.
Right.
I do have, like, you know, I've kind of shied away. Like, I love the front kit for S chassis and for stuff like that. The rear for his car, I do as what I call the New Jersey effect. I no longer run the rear kit on my... If you ask me to build your vehicle, I will not put that on there. I have something else in mind in the moment.
Nice.
That's the X factor. That's what makes... I have a stock LCA on his car, and it's like dumb fast. So like I just got a little more development to do with like this rear system, and like it's ridiculous. I have no polar weight. I have no rear weight on the car. The car has 4% more weight on the front than it does on the rear, and it hangs. I even had Forrest and Alec drive his car in a practice event, and they felt that it was a bit more nimble than what they were driving. So I'm pretty happy with like my time to get to like test now. But previously, you know, we would have like 3 weeks and then event, 3 weeks an event, 3 weeks an event. I've gotten to like sit and play with suspension design and different things and play with this car and just like smoke a bowl in the garage and like lift the arm up and down like 10 times. Like, no, move this one this way and then play with this and, you know, no, like more like roll center or more, you know, anti-squat and just like move stuff around. And, you know, I'm starting to learn a lot more about that stuff, obviously, because it wasn't a dire necessity to make Forrest car fast.
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely showed. But that's the thing, you know, talking about, you know, Matt, once again, obviously you've been doing tons of R&D and development in his car. And you can go back when he first started. Like you said, he had a $2,000 or $1,500 240 SX with a KA, and then he put SR in it. How do you feel that the sport of Pro-Am even now is progressing? And, you know, you look at your car and it's like, man, there's still guys out there with, you know, Tony Cisneros. Once again, he was a pro Formula D pro guy. LS7 built, S14. You have, you know, obviously we talk about Matt Haugen, right-hand drive, Hyundai Genesis Coupe. It's these cars are over development, but from when you started to where you are now, how did you feel the progression has been, and what is it like bringing on a tuner finally into your program?
So I'll kind of tackle that in two different instances.
Yep.
Event-wise, I used to go to Top Drift because I loved the fact that they were always on, you know, a course. Because with a course, you have to drive line, you have to know what you're doing. Versus if it's just cones, like if you hit cones or annihilate it, like who really cares? But if you're on track and there's dirt on each side, if you hit that dirt, you're, you know, blowing off course. I did it twice or 3 times yesterday. Tire came apart, delaminated, and I was just flying off course. And honestly, just that technicality there and how you had to drive, I absolutely just loved that. And then Vegas Drift started, you know, traveling and doing different things instead of having more so like the parking lot event back in like 2010, 2011, 2012. And they started traveling, doing, you know, tracks and things of that nature. And that really sparked my interest there. So where Pro-Am's going, I think we put something like 4,000 plus miles on the truck this year. We had one event in Vegas, then one in Colorado, 2 here in Arizona. You know, just getting to drive in different tracks. Yesterday was, you know, super slow entry. And then I was grabbing fourth and just, you know, letting the car do its thing. And then back to tight technical. It's the ability to drive different tracks and travel around that is just amazing. You know, I can't quite put it into words. When you get that experience and everything, it's invaluable.
Right.
Then the car side of things, you know, I had a KA with I think some, JDM coils on it and weld the diff. Basic car.
Right.
And went out and hammered. I set a goal that I wanted to be invited to All-Star Bash. Charlie sent me a message, was like, hey, come drive All-Star Bash with us. I was thrilled. 2 days, just all the truck or tires you could bring in your truck. Just go out and smash with people. Like, blew the motor 16 miles after that event. Yeah. That's what made me go SR. Some of the guys I actually met there are who sold me the SR out of their car. So going from, a very, very stock basic car, and then this year we have, it's basically a stock 1J block, and then slap on some goodies on the outside. The car makes, 600 plus and is absolutely just a ripper.
And did you supply that 1J, Garrett, or is that something that you kind of had, Matt?
It's a really funny story, actually.
There we go.
One of the I had this. Forrest has a street car build that has a very similar setup. So I really like that particular setup. I felt that as far as cost effectiveness really gets with like the Jay-Z stuff, it's really hard to beat making 600 horsepower for the amount of money that it costs to put a 35R on a 1J.
Well, I want to let's talk about that just for 1 second. Because obviously I've been having issues with my motor, and especially getting the rods and getting the pistons built, which it's going to be another month. But you don't understand how many people came up to me. He's like, why don't you just go 2J, right? So I've been obviously at American Motorsports, and they probably tune so many 2Js and 1Js. And literally,
he rocks an RB30.
And he rocks an RB30, which once again, they do all inline 6 turbo stuff. But, dude, I've never seen so many 2Js roll in with maybe rods and pistons most and make 650, 700 horsepower, like on a conservative.
This is a stock engine.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like you could literally on these 1Js and 2Js, even if you want to play safe, you can make 500-600 on a stock bottom end. Right?
Allow me to have my face and tell you that, like, I don't know why you would do that. I mean, I don't know why you can't make 600 on an LS. Why can't you?
You can, but it's like in Nay, you're gonna have to really wind it up or go super high compression, which you're still gonna upgrade everything. And then you look at the LS ones with the cathedral port heads, which they just don't flow very good. So now you're putting LS3 stuff on there, which heads alone cost X amount of dollars.
Simplicity is bliss when it comes to building drift cars. You want to overcomplicate things. You want to make your life hard. Like I don't. Like if I'm gonna work for you, I don't want to work more than I have to.
Right.
Like if you're gonna build a V8, throw a blower on it. You'll make 600-700 horsepower, and you can use a stock block. And when you shit the stock block, you throw it in the trash. You get another one. You throw it together and you put it in there. And then so this is what happened with me and Matt. Is we were last minute, putting this car together for round one, and we really had a hard time drumming up a tuner, engine tuner. I don't really do that. I guess, I'm kind of a nerd, so, I can kind of understand programs and software and stuff. So, and he knows how tech software. So we're like, let's give it hell, let's see what we can, let's see if we can make this do this, So we started trying to tune this car, and we really just kind of beat it up really bad, and then eventually melted a giant hole in the 6th piston. So it was like, all right, well, whatever. The whole design behind this is like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You blow a motor, you lose $800. Go get another one from the importer, So we get another motor, swap it in, and then we're here in Phoenix, and, again, just stupidity. I blew a head gasket, and so, I was like, all right, well, now I have like 3 of these things in my shop. Like, let's just take the better of the 3, throw some ARP hardware on it, and put it together, and that's what he's running now. And I mean, obviously, that's a little more of an expensive route, but, we got to have some fun along the way. So, I mean, I'm really not too worried about it. I think, like, to make an omelet, you got to break a few eggs. And, I think there's a lot of tuners out there that have blown a lot of motors. So, I mean, I might not know my way.
Corey knows a little bit, one thing or two about blown motors.
But like I was saying, is like with the whole 1J, 2J stuff, it seems like it is very easy to make power on those things, and they are very cost effective. What is the
problem with the 1J or 2J is to make that shit sing, to make it like lifelong, and really know like in the ins and outs. You got to have a Garrett around to like so you're gonna pay somebody to make sure that your shit's working like the way it ought to. And
so then tell me this then. So tell me this: to get a 1J or 2J running reliably, about 600 to 700 horsepower, what do you think that would cost? And what would it take to get there?
Okay, so reliable is a very neutral word. What's reliable? You're gonna take this
get
car
through a season.
Okay, a season of FD, a season of Pro-Am, a season of Pro 2.
Pro 2.
Okay, Pro 2. I don't know. If I here's
All
what
right,
you
Matt.
get. Here's what you get with your investment, right? Like as the way that I see it, Pro-Am, like you said, you put like 4,000 miles on your truck. You've probably invested I don't know. Let's just give it well, it's probably incorrect. Let's just give it a square figure and say it's $5,000 that you're invested in Pro-Am. So being invested in Pro-Am, $5,000
per round or for all of them?
for the whole season. Like,
Oh,
let's
wow.
just say, not
Okay.
not including the car
Yeah.
or anything. I'm
Yeah.
just saying,
Just
like, his travel,
operations.
his expenses, right? You're operating. So you're spending $5,000 to do a round, to do a series, right?
Right.
Okay, well, fine. You know what? Let's just throw some shit at a fucking chassis and go fucking beat it up, right? Like, cool. When you get the Pro 2, it's like, okay, now I'm spending like 15, 20 grand to do this. Like, I kind of want to go out with a little bit more security that, like, I'm actually going to get to participate and work with my investment. Because, you know, when you go from, you know, an amateur level to a semi-pro, if you want to call it that, like, you're kind of in that, like, middle ground. Like, you need to win there to progress. You want to move up to the next level. So you're already snowballing into what would need to be about a $100,000 to $150,000 program.
Right.
And, you know, so the stakes get high real quick. And if you're going to invest 150 grand into a program, you better have like a built solid platform, proven, ready to
Right.
go. You don't want to go out with a stock motor. So if you're going to ask me if I would run around Pro 2 with a stock 2J, hell no.
No.
You better believe I'm going to pull this. You know, I'm going to pull it apart and put like at least put pistons and head
that's
studs in it.
exactly.
You know?
What does that cost? That's what, $3 grand, $2 grand.
And so then you're taking a $2,000 motor and turning it into a $3,000 or $5,000 motor, and and it just.
I mean, how much?
Okay, that's
not
great.
bad.
Yeah, that is
Think about
great.
it.
But you look at this. Forrest was running the 3.2 liter 2J.
3.4 liter.
3.4?
3.4 liter Brian Crower stroker kit.
And
with
how many did
Brian
he go
Crower
through?
cams. And well, go through.
Because you remember Texas. I remember the issue in Texas. I remember the issue at
go
Vegas.
through
Drift.
is a different issue, and so we had a lot of
So endless.
we went through a few tuners, engine tuners over the years.
We're gonna be here for like
We had
3
a
more
few
hours.
engine builders over the years. As of like the 2016 season, we had some really weird issues. We popped a hole in a cylinder in testing, playing with nitrous.
And what power range were you guys at roughly?
When we blew the hole in the 6-cylinder, 1250
Okay.
Jesus.
on a Mustang dyno. Like that actually happened.
Those read low though.
No, they
they read
really
high? Okay,
they read.
but-
Those are the ones they call them the heartbreakers.
Got
If you
it.
can put 1250 on a real badass Mustang dyno, you probably make like 1500 on some like
There you go.
Dynocom poser dyno.
Jesus.
But yeah.
So they read low.
So anyways, like I mean, we really pushed that build to the limit. We pushed a lot of motors to the limit. And shit happens.
Right.
People make your crew. That people make mistakes. How much of I can't really push how much of our engine failure was human error. What happened in Texas was stupid. Actually, it was really misdiagnosed. We brought a car to the track that actually had a crack in the cylinder, and then it just got worse and worse and worse.
Right.
We had no idea that we had a crack in the cylinder. We thought we had a crack in the head, and we replaced the head, and it turns out we still had a crack in the cylinder because we didn't actually address the problem. So we had our backs against the wall. We were in a stupid spot, and that's that kind of same thing what I was saying earlier. Now, at that point, we're at like one of the last rounds. We've already spent, the better part of $100,000 to be there. Do we want to sit this round out, or do we want to spend 10 grand and go party?
Yeah.
So, okay, well, pull it out and, put another one in and off to the dyno in the morning, and nobody slept, and we got knocked out top 16 by Forsberg, so also was utterly tragic.
But that's the thing is you notice these trends of 2Js actually being a little more popular. At least I'm seeing it. 2Js and 1Js are making a hard comeback considering there was the whole V8 blowout the past couple years, and
Yeah, I'm sorry. I kind of, I kind of started a stigma and a little catchphrase and a hat and a helmet and
well, but now you can see it because in comparison, you look at my motor, which is a fully built mass motor V8, which you can go on their website and you're looking at a black label 427 for about $18,000.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And
Mass does build like the best shit.
Mass does build the best. So you're looking at like a $20,000 engine, or you can look at a decently built 2J. You look at like who was I talking to out in FD when I was in Texas? I talked to Cameron Moore, and he was telling me about his setup, which he's like, yeah, I'm stock crank, stock 3-liter pistons, rods, and some valve train, and I'm making 750-800. And he's like, I've been running this. He actually turned the anti-lag down. He says he's not even really run anti-lag. What he's been doing is using a 75 shot off the bottom, and now the car just is still reliable as hell, runs great, doesn't. But it's like, so you're telling me that you have a spare short block inside the trailer, and you're probably into that thing maybe 3-4 grand as a short block and you can switch it over. Like for me to get another.
But here's the great thing too. We had a really great relationship with Brian Crowler, and
Right.
Brian Crowler wanted Forrest on his stuff, and so how much of that investment actually really was in the motor. So there's other variables. In FD, I can tell you the program cost $100-something-thousand, but when you get into that. Like, yeah, okay, you're talking about a $30,000 or $40,000 engine, but how much of that was really taken care of? Right. those are different, outlooks and different things that
Right.
when people look at FD and look at how expensive it is. What happened for us was like, okay, so obviously we're hardcore JDM dudes. We do all the mad tight stuffs and bang rev limiters and turbos and things. So. Obviously that was like our style, our build route, but, I got put with a curveball with Honadel and, everyone's like, oh, like this crazy motor build and these V8s and you have to do this and that. And I'm like, the hardest built V8, like you can make, the hardest built, the 427 mast, whatever, like the best output, like you're going to get out of that. It's like what, like high sixes? I mean, that's not, it's not bad, but like, when you tune a motor to the limit, your torque curve, your power band, like when you have that particular power plant, your torque band's like short. You're more like, you're almost in like a turbo car at that point. Like you've driven these like high revving V8s.
Yep.
And you've been there. Like it's super similar to a turbo car. Like people say it's easy to drive an LS. Well, yeah, it is. When you have the stock cam in it and it makes like 100 foot-pounds at idle.
Right.
So like it's easy to break the tires with that. Well, yeah. So when you look at like what I did with like the Honadel's engine program and took and put a blower on it. Well, now, I mean, we were running an LQ9. The first year we were running an LQ9 at like 6.2 liters or so, like nothing too crazy. A stock LS7 cam or whatever,
Right.
whatever the LS. I'm sorry, I'm not like a very well versed LS guy, but there's
I don't believe that.
There's a LS guy. There's a
You
LS.
love V8s.
Yeah.
There's a LS that comes with a blower on it. I think it's like the 9 or the 7 or something. One of the
Yep.
Corvettes. That particular takeout camshaft was all he was running, and we were making like 800 foot-pounds of torque at 2,000 RPMs.
Right.
So that was a really usable torque band. 2,000 to like 7,000 RPMs that the engine ran, and that whole period it made, I don't know, over 800 foot-pounds of torque. So that's pretty crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, you have a really usable power band, and if you shit the block, I mean, that's a
Escalade block.
Escalade block.
Yep.
Like, it's nothing. So there's cost-effective power out there. Power adders make power cheaper. Like, I just feel like when you have a hard-tuned NA motor, like you're asking for it. Like
Yeah.
you're always one little speck of fuel wrong, one little speck of thing. Like you're just always like, well, pushing the limits. Turbo cars and nitrous and all that stuff. When you start stacking them, if you want to do like all three at the same time, like it gets pretty wild. But if you just got a turbo or a blower, I mean, it's a pretty simple setup.
Right.
Matt, you want to?
Yeah.
So back to the Pro 2, 600, 700 horsepower
Right.
2J. It all depends on your tuner.
Yep.
Whatever ECU you want to run, whether it's AEM or Haltech, whatever. If you call them and say, hey, you know what, I want somebody secure, but I want somebody that knows what they're doing and that can, do this for me, and you tell them exactly what you want, they'll say, hey, call this person.
Right.
And that's what I did, seasons ago. And I had a 600 and, we say it's cursed because it was at 666 mathematically, but it would never have grip on the dyno because we were running a small shot of nitrous,
Right.
and that's what it should have made. So, never had a ton of luck in that motor, but recently Garret took it apart to build it and prepare it for the new build, and everything was fine inside, and it was misfiring on nitrous, 20 pounds of boost, and the motor was fine. So if you find somebody that you're confident in and knows what they're doing,
Right.
you can build, a stock 2J to build, 600-700 horsepower at, good power levels, VVTi working, small shot of nitrous, and you can have that on a stock block 2J.
How long you been running your setup in your car?
The 1J or
Yeah, the 1J.
Just this season.
Just to see. So how many rounds do you have in it?
4 plus some practices.
4 plus some practices.
Yeah.
And it's obviously been pretty reliable considering you're making over 600 plus horsepower. How?
Yeah, we had some, stupid small issues. We blew a coolant port out of the back of the block at round 3 here at Wild Horse. Still took it out, tried to qualify in it, and it was just too dark. I couldn't see what I was doing, and unfortunate events there. But the car was still, even with hurt head gasket and everything else, the car was still hammer.
Right.
It would go out, perform. It was like, cool, let's go till we melt down. And that was my plan. If I qualified,
God, yep.
Like, we're gonna run this thing till it melts together, and
Right.
hopefully I'll be on a podium by then.
Nice.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's interesting too, because like with a motor that costs $800, I mean, you can literally do that. Like you're
Right,
not out
yeah.
anything when you have like your mast motor and Paco earlier kind of explained to me the logistics of what was and what damaged. You're very fortunate that you really only damaged the engine block itself. Your rotating assembly is still intact, everything's still good. Like, but that that bad cam is $1,000 cam, and that that rotating assembly is a $3,000 rotating assembly fit and designed for that block.
Right.
So with this 1J that we paid $800 for, if he melts it to smithereens, he's out $800. And
Yeah.
like, I know for like a lot of people, you're like, man, I mean, $800 is like a lot of money. Cause like, man, right now I wish I had $800. But in the theme and spirit of racing, we naturally just like, blow lots of that stuff. So, the 1J project was like really kind of like a cool thing and an idea. And then like, as I kind of got towards the end of the season, after we had some engine failures, I'm like, man, you know what? I can't trust the fresh off the boat motors anymore. Like I really need to go through these a little more.
Right.
Not for any particular reason, just for peace of mind. Like, I pulled one of his apart and the bearings looked better than like anything. I've never taken a bearing out of a motor that looked so good. Like it looked
Right.
like the motor had like 20,000 miles on it.
Nice.
And then the other one I took apart looked like it had been out of the river. So like, so it's just, you get a lottery with these engines
Right.
sometimes. And it's like, we need to perform on a date, on a time. And you have to prepare all that for a date and a time. You have a deadline and there's no joke. Like, if, you put a whole motor together, from the bottom up, like everything's new.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just what we went with. I mean, it's a really simple engine build for the 1J. We didn't put anything over the top. It doesn't have forged pistons. It doesn't have rods. It has ARP bolts, and it has a BC head gasket, and it has ARP studs.
Have you driven a V8 car before?
Have I?
Yeah.
Oh, well, so here's the funny thing. Actually, this is a really good prelude to the kind of sense of humor that this guy has. So he's like, man, I need to get better at drifting. So like, I'm gonna pick up another car for you to drive, so that I can have like a moving target, so that like I can get better at tandem and get more experience, and you can teach me some things, give me some shit, So like, I'm like, okay, cool. So like, he calls me. He's like, hey, I found the car. Kevin's gonna go pick it up. It's gonna show up at the shop. I'm like, okay, cool. Whatever. So I'm working. Car shows up. Kevin unloads it, and it's an LS car.
Ha ha. Got him.
So now, if I want to drive, I have to work on an LS.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I know, it's like,
And that was up to you who did it? Yes. Have you driven it yet?
I think you drove it through the parking lot once, and that was
Oh
about
my
it.
God, it's amazing.
I refuse.
Yeah, so you're diehard.
I am Jay-Z committed.
Oh my God.
I have never stepped foot in my V8 car other than to drive it to the track once, because the Jay-Z car was getting like seatbelts in it. So I drove it to the track, parked it, and I was like, cool.
Done.
Bring me
That's
my
it.
turbo car.
Yeah, where's Garrett?
Yep.
Garrett, here, your LS car's
Yep.
ready to go.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I was mentioning earlier is even just going out to Texas again and you're seeing this transition happen again where it's like fuck, there's getting more turbo cars out here now, which is great. But once again, now it's kind of a swing. Like these dudes are bragging about how reliable and how great they've been. But on your guys' car, do you run like an AccuSump or a dry sump or anything like that?
And that's a Jay-Z thing. I have never put any kind of AccuSump or dry sump on any of these motors. I know for my documentation, I've been responsible for probably 15 2Js that have lost their lives. And out of that 15, I found one that had either an oil pump or oil starvation issue. It also happened at Irwindale. So the bank factor definitely plays into oil sump design. But there's a big thing for you guys to watch out for out there with the JZs. There's about 8 different front sump designs and oil pans that go on these things. Make sure you have the pan that goes with your sump sucker. Because let me tell you, you'll find out real quick the wrong way when you have the deep pan and the shallow sucker, or vice versa. You won't be able to put the pan on, or you're going to blow your motor.
That was Paco's nickname in high school, was Shallow Sucker.
Shallow sucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was very popular.
You were popular.
that
that
was
was
very
in
popular.
Guadalajara.
What was you, the deep sucker?
No, I wasn't a sucker, but you're the shallow sucker. So I was like, why would you put Paco in an oil pan? But it makes sense now.
But do you still recommend baffling the old pans and all that, or?
I've actually never made any of those modifications. I found that the late model JZ VVTi front sump pans have a really good Some of them are really, I don't know. It's the lowest to the ground, which I don't like because I obviously like to run shit really low. But that particular pan design, you know, I feel like I've had the most success with. So when I find those, I kind of just like throw them in the corner. You know, when you've torn apart like as many of these stupid things as I have, like you start hoarding like random things. You're like, oh, I like this like bolt. Like this one bolt on the JZ is like my favorite bolt, and like I have like a Ziploc bag of like 5 of them.
All of those.
Like, I'm not saying it's actually a thing, but like there's certain like pieces like, oh, this like on JZX 100, like this part's super cool, so like I take that part. But then like on like the old 1J, like I like the throttle body, so I'm gonna take that. Like, you know, there's always like there's little bits and pieces that like I've accumulated over the years. You know, I have an old set of like green valve covers from like my Pro-Am days that are like sacred. Like he's like, put a catch can on my car, and I was like, I can put these valve covers on that have, you know, AN10s on them, but
I thought collecting
They're
baseball
still sitting
cards
in a
was-
box.
Yeah, oh yeah, just forever just collecting dust. Well, now that you obviously been competing in Pro-Am for quite some time, what is your plan in, you know, moving forward in the sport? Is FD something you want to go after?
What position do you finish this season?
Well,
I don't know yet.
Yeah, did you run all rounds or?
Yeah, I was there at
Yeah.
all of them. Some of them were, you know, great success, like this last one, and then some. I either outdrove myself at round 2, or, you know, lack of a tuner and stupid thing. I don't know how it happened, but there was a block in the wastegate port, so the car was at like 36 pounds of boost. I didn't have injectors for it, and that's actually what ended up kind of destroying that motor. Is you know, 36 psi untuned. Car felt like great when it wasn't misfiring, but that kind of messed it up at round 1. So next year we'll come out swinging, and like I told everyone last night, like I'm just here to do cool shit with my friends and have a good time, you know.
Do you see FD in your future or no?
I would kind of like to do it just for the experience, get to travel, get to drive with different people, and of course the drivers there, they're just on a different level, and that'd be something that I think I'd really enjoy.
What wasn't your car on FD already?
Yeah, it was used by Mike Pollard in Seattle and Texas.
Right on.
Borrow
So,
a car. So I mean, at least you know your car has been on FD ground. So
Yeah, and the improvements made since then, like I was off the shelf coilovers. This year I'm on custom valve stances.
Yep.
You know, we had scales and stuff for it, weighed it out, sent out the figures, and you know, I thought, oh, you know, this car has grip before, and now with that, like we can just, you know, dial dampeners or play with spring rates, but yeah, exactly. We've ran the whole, you know, whole event on the hard setting. And it's like everyone, you know, this weekend was telling me, you know, your car's crazy fast, everything else. Well, we bring 2 different tires to events depending on what the track is.
Right.
If it's super grippy, then I'm going to put on a tire that's not so great. And if it's, you know, not, then we have the vice versa.
Right.
So we were actually on like our slow tire, you know, somewhat hard setting on the coils, and the car was still just wicked fast this weekend. And, you know, had we played with the dampener some and put on some good tires, and it would have been
A rocket ship?
Yeah.
What's some things you've kind of like taken away from each season? You know, everybody has this development year, or they get into a competition, they learn something from that particular year. What was something that you really felt that you've learned from this year that you're going to implement differently for next year?
Definitely be like more prepared for events prior to actually, you know, leaving. No more packing up the trailer Thursday night to leave Friday. Or
Oh God! But that's the drifter rule, right? Isn't it? It's like
not drifting
if it's not last minute,
minute.
then it's not drifting, and that's, you know, the same for SEMA and everything else. And I don't know why it's like you always keep telling yourself, it's like, do you know, we're gonna get this thing figured. And even if you plan for that, it's like, I don't know. For me, it's personally, I always feel like there's something I can do, and then I get myself in a bind. But
we were packing the 350Z like just minutes before.
oh yeah, we were an hour late to the event because we were
Dude,
still loading shit up. And it's like
yeah,
we just found out the day before, but. Yeah, so that was obviously something that you guys were dealing with. It's like, dude,
it's
we're
just
fucking last minute all the time.
last minute shenanigans, you know.
Yep.
It's that's one thing that I think I'm most tired of. We finished off the season, you know, the car's still running. I can unload it off the trailer, and you know, we are next weekend. Street driven tours
Yep.
in Vegas next weekend, and there's a practice event Sunday. So you know, I plan on driving both days and just going hammer time and having fun with my friends. You know, that's kind of like the whole point of the thing. Yeah, exactly.
And-
We actually need to get another Haltech for the LS car.
Oh man, there you go.
I'm telling you, those V8s are cursed. Yep, those V8s
I can't
are
wait to
cursed.
see video of Garrett driving LS. Actually, Iron Dookie has a question for you on our YouTube. He goes, would you recommend a 100 horsepower S10 with an open diff and a 275 rear tire and a bench seat to start a drifting career? I'm asking for a friend.
bench seat.
The only thing about that program that wouldn't work is the open diff. You can take 10 minutes in a Lincoln and make that shit lock.
The Lincoln Locker.
Well, would it be okay if like you're only spinning the right rear and the track's left? Just a big left donut. Would that still work?
So I tested this theory. I found someone earlier this season. It was really funny. They bowed out a competition due to a mechanical failure, and I looked on the screen and I looked at what the car did, and I'm like, they claimed they went out for an axle failure, but they drifted part of a bank, and like I've asked like myself, suspension techs, like 10 other drivers, like, is that possible? And they're like, no. Like if you open up one wheel, like you're not doing anything. Even if it was the laden wheel up on the bank, like no, you're not going to drift that bank. That was a lie. There was something else going on. Whoever got twisted.
I thought we saw Michael Essa drifting that bank with no tire in the rear, which is pretty much the same as running an open diff.
No. Okay, listen, you have not lived. There's some funny things you break, and I'll tell you this because I'm a delinquent asshole, and I went to my shop one morning. It's at the Speedway. They have these bright yellow speed bumps, and I'm like, what the fuck they paint these stupid things for? I'm like, fuck this shit. It's like they do it there, and you look at it, and you're like, I just want to do a burnout on this. Like, I just want to blow my tires off and just ruin their new paint job. So I proceed to do so, and the mechanical grip gained from the suspension when I dipped off the speed bump caused my axle and differential to part ways.
Yeah.
So like I'm driving back to the shop and he's making all this racket, like one of my colleagues is with me and he's like, what is that? I'm like, the axle's broke. And he's like, why are we still driving? I was like, because the other axle's still intact. I was like, actually, you want to see something funny? You ever broke an axle before? They're like, no. I punch it and no matter what you do, like a car that has like 150 horsepower, if you break one axle and you have a welded, like, and it just drive, like, you don't realize an open diff actually makes traction. Like, it will find the path of least resistance, which isn't necessarily ideal, but it does find traction. When you're stuck with one of the two, your car gets no grip. So even if you have a 265 on the back of your car and you make 150 horsepower with a broken axle on a welded, you will blow the right tire right off of it. And I proceeded to do that the whole way back to my shop. I literally just like floored it and was driving like the whole way back, and like the one tire was just spinning, and the car didn't even want to drift. Like it
One
just
tire fire.
Yeah, no, it was like the greatest one wheel burnout ever.
Yeah, we like the one wheel peels. Yeah, so Iron Dookie, to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, definitely, dude. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see an S10 and FD. You'd have to petition Kevin Wells at fdtech.com to get that approval. But,
well, I think he's qualified.
I implore you to do that. Actually, that brings up another thing that blows me out. There's so many guys that are getting into drifting and they're like, oh, I'm going to be an FD pro. Listen, you're not. I'm sorry. I don't want to be that guy, but you're not. Here's the deal. This dude, like, if he wants to go do FD, I'd encourage him to do so. Not because I think he's the greatest driver ever, but I think he has the budget and the composure to go out and do it. And I think he would go out and do it, and it would be like, hey, you know what? This is my vacation. Let's say we'll use Pro 2 for example. For four rounds out of the year, I'm going to travel to 4 different destinations and do drifts for fun with my friends, and that's cool.
Yep.
Like, and all too often nowadays, like these guys coming up, they're all like, hey, I'm going to go FD Pro. I'm going to take out Forsberg. I'm going to crash into his door. I'm going to get revenge for Forrest. I'm coming back. Bloodlust. Like, whatever, man. I'm sorry somebody shit in your Cheerios when you were in high school, but this isn't the platform to prove to the world that you are great. Like, you can find something else. This is something that's fun for a select group of people, and if you have the money to play and you want to go up and you want to go big, like, it's fun. It's fun. You can find other means. You can find sponsors, but if you don't have your budget dialed and you don't have any business doing this, don't do it. Like, you can have fun at grassroots. Don't get me wrong. You can build a 200 horsepower car and have more fun than everyone at FD. I promise you. I've been there. I've done it. We had 100 horsepower missile cars. There's a whole episode of Turked about it. Like, it's great. We've had tons of fun with no money. We can have tons of fun with lots of money. But the thing about racing is, it just, like, what's the old saying? Like, how do you
shit in Cheerios if you have no Cheerios?
Well, there you go. But no, it's no. How do you make a small fortune in racing? You start with a large one.
Yeah.
Like, it's just there's nothing about this that isn't going to cost you. And if you think that, like, this is going to be like finding a football scholarship when you're in high school, it's not. This is drifting. Like, it takes a lot of input, patience, money, and you want to have fun at it. Like, that's the point.
Right. Well, you obviously held an FD license and you never used it.
Oh, yeah, like whatever. I don't know. I could probably just make a phone call, but probably not.
Oh yeah, you well, yeah. No, but
I've been there, but no,
you've been
I
licensed,
could.
but the things you never utilized it. And what was the reason for you never want to use it? Like, you just want to make that jump, make the investment.
I have
or
a
what?
whole speech for this. No, United.
Okay.
No. United we stand, divided we fall. That's the bottom line. Who of my caliber is gonna go to that level and learn that about driving, and then come back and say, okay, like I'm gonna re-engineer everything and teach other people how to do it. Like, I just feel like I know, like, my brain works really good, but the bottom line is, if you get me on the line for like a competition at pro-am level, I shake like a tree. I have you might not understand this about me, or if you ever met me, and you think I'm like really weird or something. I have like really bad anxiety.
I didn't believe that at all. I would never have guessed. I would have never have guessed one bit.
Such a self-composed.
Yeah, I just look at Garrett's Facebook rants every now and then. I was like, yeah, he doesn't have anxiety at all. You could tell. You could totally tell this guy's totally composed
It's
all
terrible.
the time.
It's terrible. No, but
Yeah.
I feel like on like several different stations, like an overcoming adversity candidate. Like, I mean, I really feel like I've done a lot with my life, where most people are like, oh, I have anxiety, I'm gonna sit at home and take Xanax. Like, no, I don't do that. I don't take anything. Well, I smoke a bunch of weed and I drink a lot. Like, that's just, I'm Garrett. That's like I think that's in the dictionary. So it's just who I am. Like, I'm pretty content, like, with how I've become, and I think like FD has actually really helped me. And even being in a situation like this, if you had social anxiety, why would you sit on a talk show? That's like asking for it.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually, like, not lie, like, I got pretty nervous with Sam's bantering earlier, but
But see, but that's the
I
thing
have
about
this delicious Four Peaks
Enhan-
growler
social
to
enhancer.
help my social.
Slicking the pipes.
I'm pulling. I learned from Jared Dienda, and I think it's working well.
Yeah. Well, but that's the whole thing about this show. It's not meant to be
No, dude,
an
and
interview.
that's
It's a
kind of what I
hangout.
wanted to tell like Sam earlier. Is like, he got like super serious with it, dude, and I'm like, you know what? Like, honestly, like, if I saw Chris, I'd give him a high five. I've given Chris mad props to his face. Like, I know I have multiple times. I gave him a whole lot of credit one time in a conversation about like developing the East Coast culture, because when I left Pittsburgh, there was nothing to like drifting. Like, there was nothing there.
And what year was that?
2005-ish, 2006. Like, East Coast Bash wasn't quite a thing yet. Matt Petty hadn't started
Taking over.
Seriously, Matt Petty's like a crazy guy. Like, he like motivates people to do drifts for reasons unknown to man. Like, that dude has a really cool culture. I really envy the East Coast Bash culture. Like, it's a super enjoyable atmosphere event. Like, I mean, if you're not into like punk rock and like biker gangs, then it's probably not for you. But I grew up around that, so I'm super comfortable there. That's kind of like, it's as close to my home as most drifting events get. So,
Well, you look at like kind of how they sell. They sell their programs as you would want to compete in FDs. Like, do you know what? We're just a bunch of bros who come out and do the pro down, bro down, drop. All string attached. We're just out here to have fun. That's like kind of the same way that you would operate your team idea. Is like, you know what? Let's set up 4 vacations out of the year, and if people want to be a part of it, great. If they don't, oh well, I'm still going to do it either way. But we're gonna have the most fun as we possibly can. No pressure added. If we go on, we go on. If we don't, we don't.
Psychologically taking the pressure off of a driver is crucial to your success as a program. And if you can write it off as this is just fun and it's a vacation and that helps your driver, like, that's great.
Yeah.
If you have a driver that doesn't care about their financial situation enough to blow money at that and just be relaxed and be cool and be themselves, like, they're composed, they're cool. But I can't tell you, a big part of like crew chiefing. I mean, as far as like what I did. I mean, I spent a lot of time, like sitting like right before the burnout blocks with the driver about to go, be it whoever I worked for or who was up at that time. Sitting and calming them down, looking at their eyes, like you see some crazy looks in people's eyes right before they're about to go for like an FD top 16. Top 32 actually is probably the most stressful battle that you can go through, because you really want to make the show. You just want it so bad, and going out 32 just means you're the B-list driver. Like, you need to make that top. 32 is more stressful than the finals for better half of the grid.
Right.
And, so watching drivers go up for top 32, once you win 32, like, you have a momentum. Like, you're flowing, you're good, like, you're with it. You're like, I'm feeling it today, I'm going to kill it. But the first tandem battle you have at any event is always the most stressful. And I spent a lot of times talking to those dudes, like just talking about like the color of the sky or like that cloud looking like a donut, because that gets their mind off of like whatever else is really going on in their head right at that moment. And it's pretty wild, the changes and the results that you get from like, you know,
just relieving the pressure.
seriously, because as a driver, that's kind of like what I took back to like apply to help, was that when I was on grid like that and they're like, okay, your tires are changed, your tire pressure set, go. And you sit in grid for like 10 minutes and you're like, okay, there's like 3 more battles. Oh, I got it one more time.
Well, do you know
I'm stuck in this car.
Well, that's the thing. Well, last episode when we talked to James, we asked him like, what do you do in preparation? Do you still get nervous? Because that's one of the dudes that looks like he's not fazed by anything. And he's like, do you know what I do? Honestly, he's like, I get absolutely fucking nervous. I get butterflies. But do you know what I do? He says he waits the last possible moment before he sits in the car. He goes, I try to wait as long as I can. And like literally, as that other battle, he's like rushing to get in the car, belted on, and then so he has less time to think about what's happening rather than dwelling and sitting in the car, which is helps the mind. That's half the battle. And that's what I told the people. I was like, yeah, top 32's battle's tough, top 16 battle's tough, but probably the difficult battle is just what you're fighting in your head, getting up to that.
One of the funniest ones that I ever heard, this is a rumor, and for those of you out there that have been around this long, there was a driver that was famous for not allowing GoPros in his car several years back, and the reason was because he felt that his pregame ritual was to how do you say, manipulate yourself.
Whoa.
Hold on. Yeah, keep going. I like this. Keep
manipulate yourself in the burnout box before you take off to get that killer instinct in the game. While he was not a successful driver, it was pretty well believed that he did in fact do that. There was also the Danny George at one year went at the boxer effect and decided not to have any sort of I don't know if it was just like, you know, like ejaculation in general or with fornication with his wife.
God.
Jesus,
But
Danny.
you know, went the boxer route and decided that he wasn't going to do any of that for like the entire season.
Danny George, he probably doesn't do it all year.
I mean, you know, we're talking about a guy that probably doesn't, you know, ever, I mean, you know, whatever. I mean, I don't know. He's a friend of mine. I shouldn't talk bad about him. I know he'd come back and be like, I do have sex with Jen. That happens.
Wow. We're gonna have Danny pretty soon. And we'll find out.
Yeah, you can find out all the deets on that. No, I mean that was just like, you know, but there's been some funny rumors about people's pregame rituals. There's definitely a bunch out there, and you know, I invite you all to explore them.
Try to find yours that works. That's the best thing.
Or explore yourself.
I personally like. There's always like I have this like mental problem where I call it the song of the day. There's always a song stuck in my head for like that particular day, and as long as I'm playing the song in my head, like. Shit's fine.
Do you know what song it is?
That was
right
now.
What's today's?
What would be today's?
Imagine Dragons is today's. It is the song Thunder.
Oh.
Absolutely.
I thought you were gonna go with Sail. Like
no,
the song was
it.
used on Drift videos.
Yeah.
So
Big Balls, what's your theme song right now? What is it?
Fly like an eagle.
Oh, okay. Well, if you had to pick,
it's probably some synthwave.
if you had to
anyways.
pick one for tomorrow, what
no
would it
lyrics.
be? Yeah.
You can't pick your song of the day a day in advance. It doesn't make the song of the day.
Once again, we just had this conversation about preparing a day before so you don't show up late. Let's pick a song a day before so we don't show up late, so we're prepared for the next day. Brian, what is it? Go. Is it?
I can't think of it.
Oh my God! I would if I had.
It's the original Transformers theme song.
If you had to pick a song for Brian, what would it be?
It would be probably the intro song from E.T.
There's got to be something better for him than that, and I don't want to be as generic as to stereotype him for being the 8-bit guy with like just saying Super Mario Brothers, but there's probably some super
Castlevania.
nostalgic. Yeah, there you go.
Yes,
Castlevania.
Castlevania. There you go.
The Mega Man 2
Mega Man.
title intro.
Mega Man 2 title intro. Would be a great hype song.
Mine would be the second Sonic the Hedgehog when you get the gold points and it goes into like that super flash mode. That's my
Nerd
Drift
alert.
theme song. Yeah.
What about yours, Matt?
Honestly, I wouldn't have one.
It's like the Eye of the Tiger.
Paco, do you know mine? Do you know what mine would be, Paco?
Probably Oscar
No,
Mayer's
it'd
jingle.
be El Sandito.
What?
El Sandito.
Sonidito.
Yep. Yep, the Mexican. Yep. I'll do some sort of banda Spanish music or something like that. Yep. No, but realistically, it was funny because me and Dustin used to try to think of theme songs for the day, and we realized we didn't work, so we were just like, all right, cool. But we would go like deep, like Creedence Clearwater Revival, like Vietnam War music. Like, what do these guys do to listen? Like, We tried everything. I'm like, I'm just better off just waiting and jumping in the car and jumping right into it.
We had a crew theme song actually, and we got in a lot of trouble with Forrest because he put his helmet on and we'd do this. You could take the headset radio and like play like music off your cell phone through your radio system, throughout your team. And we had this like weird experience, just several like unusual events that caused us to get stuck on this song. And I'm trying to think of like the name of the artist, but all I know the song as, if you type it in YouTube, it's "Move That Dope."
Wow.
Yeah, it's like the most gangster rap song ever about slang and coke, and it
God,
really got the whole crew super fired up to go do their thing, man. And so like right before like battles, sometimes I pull that out on my phone and play it over the radio.
And you got jacked on it.
So the thing about like old-fashioned, radio to radio communication is the longer that your communication is, connected or outputting, it kills your batteries. So if you start playing music for like top 32, you're not going to have any battery left for, the finals if, you make it there.
People suggesting electric slide, like Aaron Duke suggests electric slide.
Oh
Cody
my
Martinez,
God.
obviously Nickelback. Corey, come
Yeah,
on.
I think what we need to do is like
Hunter-
see we're gonna step the game up, see if Big Balls can do this. Get a file photo of everybody in the room right now, and then have everybody write back of the file photo what the song would be for that file photo.
Actually, this is a really good song, and I would probably run this. Hunter Fontanote says "Keyboard Cat."
Yeah.
Yeah, that would probably I would not disagree because I would probably turn up to Keyboard Cat.
I would trump him with hamster
Well,
dance.
Brian Q's Keyboard Cat. Garrett, you're building Triple B. That's Triple B for short.
Yeah, Big Balls Brian.
Big
Triple
Balls
B.
Brian. You're building his BMW, right?
in the mirror image of what I would have built for him if he would have gave me a BMW.
And do you like BMW as much as chassis?
I'll tell you what. Here's the thing. The E46 car. Here's my opinion of drifting on a long-term system.
Hey, Brian, can you play Keyboard Cat and silently in the background? It's very quiet as Garrett. So, Garrett, hold on a second. Okay, turn it down just a little bit.
Okay,
just a little bit. All right, go ahead. Now you can tell us.
So anyways, I feel like the S13, the 240SX, became a popular drift car because it made poor traction.
Yep.
Right, and that the people that were early into drifting didn't like BMWs because they made a ton of traction and they couldn't drift them.
Yep.
Now the tables have turned.
The tables are turned.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Right on cue.
And why wouldn't you go the route of Brian? Can you hit me back with that again? I'm going to ask Matt a question.
This goes the
right.
keyboard Matt.
All right, I'm gonna wait for it to drop. All right, Matt. Question for you. So, if you weren't driving an S chassis and you had to drive another chassis, which one would it be and why?
There's so many chassis that I like from an E92 body.
And real quick, you have to finish before the song's over. Go.
Okay, body style E92, E46 chassis design and suspension design. That's it, I guess.
All right.
Nice.
Perfect. Good answer.
Perfect.
I actually really enjoy this game. All right. So when we ask a question, you have to complete it before Keyboard Cat is over, and once it's over, then you're done.
Yep.
Brilliant. I
You
love
are
that.
done.
Brilliant.
You
You guys ready for some Instagram
Yeah.
questions or what?
Yeah. So outside of us, you guys did quite a few questions on the social medias.
Hold on, I should probably make a post or something.
Oh,
It might be too late for that.
Do you guys have an Instagram?
No.
Yeah, it's Hot Dogs or Legs, 420 Blaze It, or it's Maximum Driftcast. But let's actually fire off questions. We'll ask one question. You guys will both answer. Take your turn. We'll make it short and sweet. But let's start off very basic.
Oh.
Beef Farmer 89 asked, "What's
Big
your
balls,
favorite?"
Big Balls, send that to me so I can post it.
Yep. So we got Big Balls ripping a selfie. All right, Beef Farmer 89 asks both of you, "What's your favorite beer?"
Garrett.
Oh man, this
Oh my
is
God.
this is
Oh
a
my God.
really
Cue up Keyboard
this
Cat.
is a really thorough question. There's so much out there, and the generic answer is going to be I am a big fan of malted Belgian strong
Hey,
ales,
Brian,
triples.
stop the song. All right, and Garrett, you're done. All right, Matt. All right, Matt. What is your favorite beer? I bet Matt can knock this out pretty quick.
There's a Hefeweizen that my brother bought back from Germany when he was stationed over there. That was just absolutely terrific. Don't remember the name of it, but I've yet to find it since.
The Hogarden.
I will one day go there, but I don't think I'll get any Hogarden.
Well, hold on. While the mic is on you, Matt, we're gonna just go right into the next question. Joey Jack Edit asked, "I'd like a name for each of their hairstyles."
Oh,
Okay, so I think okay, so
Which hairstyle would you like?
I think Garrett
You're an Encino
Garrett
man.
is like
He's-
emo,
like-
and then he switches to the Ned Stark. Like if you do the
It-
man bun,
it depends. Like
There you go.
day after the shop when he's like just filthy, kind of
Yeah.
like dirty bum. It's
I have a famous hashtag for my hair. It is based off a Japanese anime, and it is hashtag perfect hair forever.
wow.
Ooh.
Who's that one guy that started Encino Man?
Oh, the
Or Brandon.
Brandon Fraser.
Brandon Fraser. Just Google Brian. Google Brandon Fraser now,
And
and let's see what his haircut looks like, because that's what I think.
speaking of hairstyles, Piston Head Productions, Jacob, he's asking, how much mutton could a mutton chop if a mutton chop could chop muttons?
Oh my
I think
God.
that's for Garrett.
Six.
You know what? The actual answer to that is I'm not allowed to shave them.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
You're not allowed to shave him.
No.
What happened? What's just real quick? Why?
I suffered some nuclear radiation testing on the side of my face that scarred me for life, and I used the sideburns to cover
Oh,
them.
so it's security
They
thing.
also gave me special
a
powers
security
to
thing.
tune
Yeah.
and make suspension work better than anyone else.
Is it the Wolverine powers?
Right. Well, also I had a run-in with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah. I've seen you without him, dude. I couldn't even tell.
All right, here we go. Noodle powers. This is for Garrett.
Oh.
Garrett, do you miss FD, and what would it take to get you guys to come back?
It depends on what you mean by you guys. What would it take for me to come back? The right program and the right time. Do I miss it? Hell yeah. It's awesome. I mean, there's nothing like for me like being a part of that show is awesome. Being in the pits, it's like I don't know. Sometimes I get down on myself and I call it the revamp of high school because it's like you just kind of like have your season together and then you go away for the summer and you come back the next year. But it's like it's all the homies, it's all the friends. You know, like
Yeah.
I have like mad love for Matt Field, Matt Kaufman. You know, like all the guys from Cali up like. East Coast guys. I even like Forsberg, despite what people might think about me because I say that. Or, I've had some cool conversations with Vaughn. He actually tricked me into drinking one of his Monster Energy drinks that was filled with water. There's stuff like that that's like gone down. There's so much like fun, like cool stories, and like you're traveling the world with a bunch of goofy ass people, and there's really just so much fun to be had. And aside from the serious 3 days that you have on the track, like there's 2 or 3 or more that are like just so much fun.
Isn't it the best? Like when you show up the first day at Long Beach, first round, everybody's got fresh cars. It's all positive. Everybody's like ready. Like everybody's
It's
happy.
just, you pull up in your rig, everybody pulls up in theirs, and you're like, okay, who's dropping the gate first? Like, who's tech appointments first? Like, and then someone's car comes out, and you're like, look, like, Mad Mike's got cooler vinyl this year. And,
Hey, Garrett, we're still talking about your hair. Can you go ahead and give us a quick flex on camera real quick with your hat off? We're going to try to compare a picture here real quick.
Oh, right.
right.
Hold on. Okay, like, I think I can do that.
All right, let's go ahead.
Let me try. I can't rip my shirt off because I'm just not that buff.
All right,
We'll
so
just-
hold
we'll
that.
just- we'll
Okay.
just-
That's
we'll
what we're
just do that,
replicating
and
Hulk
what we
Hogan
can
style
do-
haircut.
What we can do is we can
Go ahead,
throw
cut
that.
back.
We can just
Yeah, see, that's what I thought. I was like an 89 spandex wearing Hulk Hogan. There we go. I'm glad we found that.
Just a whole lot
Thanks, Big
whiter.
Balls.
just a lot wider.
Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for that. That was awesome.
I have a question from Drift Illustrated. This one's for Matt. Matt, what is your biggest hurdle, and what could you have done differently?
It's a little vague. Biggest hurdle. Budget's always a hurdle. What are you willing to commit to a season? Do you want to live in a nice home and have all the nice things, or do you want to go drifting with your friends and blow all your money on that? It's budget's always a hurdle. Like what you want to devote to to drifting, cars staying together. There's always biggest hurdles. Everything has its biggest hurdle. And I think for me, it'd just be commitment to one, building and finishing a car. Instagram name is, Project Commitment Issues. I build
Right.
cars. I, change ideas. I love building. So one would be building a car, and then how much I want to devote, financially to it.
Yeah, that's definitely the hardest part. Here's another question for both of you guys. Garrett, I kind of know the answer to this, but we'll just kind of whiz through it. And this is for you too as well, Matt. AEAce88 asks, if you could build any competitive drift chassis, what would it be you build? What engine, suspension, and steering package? Short and sweet. Go through just part by part real quick. Chassis, suspension, angle, engine.
Man, it's really hard to make
Anything.
questions simple with me.
I know. We got Keyboard Cat on deck, but go ahead.
You know what? If it's gonna be balls to the walls, like I'd build an M6. Like that's like my favorite car of all time. I'm a big BMW fanatic. I think they set the auto trends for the world. So I think you could take an M6 and do some cool shit with it. I believe they share the same like suspension as like the M5 and then down to the.
There's a
46.
few M6 drift cars in Europe
And
that
yes,
look
and
pretty
there is a couple.
What year M6?
Like 06. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know,
Like
whatever.
the
If I'm
first
gonna be
generation
baller, you know, I want
M6,
to buy
that
a
look pretty
brand new.
badass.
You know, whatever. I mean, even with all the sky's the limit, but no, I mean, I love that. My engine platform has always been, 2J, and my suspension will always be stance, and anything that WiseFab puts out, I'll probably work with. Those guys have done. Listen, when you're doing this, when you find people that make you look good, you like those people. And Stance and WiseFab have made me look really good for a really long time. So that would always be my weapons of choice.
And Matt, short and sweet.
Can't give you like the top 3 because they could very well potentially come out. But there's chassis that I love. Like I said earlier, from the E92, the M6 that Garrett just brought up is a pretty brilliant one. There's a Aston Martin that we're kind of debating on turning into one. That may happen. Just to build a stupid, obnoxious car and like, hey, look at this cool shit,
That's
All right.
The Aston Martin idea is like it's even a little beyond me. Like I don't even know how I
Hey,
feel about
yeah.
that. That's a little bit too.
If I
like,
built
at that point, I might have to say that this guy has more V hate than I do.
if I built that
that's once again, that
minivan,
kind of goes against what you're talking about. Is just trying to figure something that's reliable and works, and that's all brand new
let's
shit.
put an LS1 and
I
Aston
built my
Martin.
life. I built
Simplicity.
everything that I do off of simplicity. The crappier and easier that I could make our programs, like the greater our success became.
Right.
I don't want to say crappy, but like, when you can have something just easy, it's so much better than overcomplicating things. And no offense, like V8 turbos, like that, there's just so much going on. Like there's wastegates everywhere and turbos, and your spark plugs are catching on fire.
Yep.
Like, there's just so much going on. And I'm like over here, like there's got to be an easier way to make this kind of power reliably and have a successful year.
That brings up the next point. Another question. This actually kind of rolls into that. Katani 61. This is what he says. This is for both of you guys. Denofa said that all you need is 400 horsepower to win Pro-Am. Does that still apply? What kind of year budget is necessary for a championship winning program in Pro-Am?
Well, if you were able to like live stream what had happened last night, Matt's climb to the top throughout the bracket consisted of him ripping through a guy with a stock BMW M3, and in the finals, a pretty much stock Mustang GT from like 1998 or 2002, somewhere in that generation of Mustangs. So to give you an idea, at a Pro-Am level, all you need to really do is keep your car running for about
doesn't break.
2 hours. If you can keep your car running for 2 hours and not spin out, you will probably win a Pro-Am event. I mean, I don't mean to belittle guys that have like dope battles, and like there is some good like camaraderie and good drifting in Pro-Am at times, but like there's sometimes like and even we call it in the bracket, like in the industry, like the luck of the bracket. Like there's some days like you get your bracket on Friday and you're like, oh yeah, like this is gonna be a podium weekend, like pull out all the stops, like let's do it. And then there's the weekends where like both your drivers go up against Forsberg 32 and 16, and you're like, okay, well, I might as well just start packing now.
Yep.
So there's different effects, but I just feel like you can be. I've seen guys whoop on 200 horsepower in Pro-Am. It happens.
Yep.
Dude, what is Brandon Sorensen running in Pro-Am?
He is running an M3. It's
Right.
a stock M3. Like it is pretty ridiculous, but it's a S54, just generic with a ZF5 speed hooked to it, M3, drive line, and he just beats the crap out of it.
He qualified 7th. He did really well yesterday.
I was really impressed. When you see something like that, especially after being around this for so long, you're like, a kid in a drift car, like, I don't know how I feel about this, and then like you realize that, like, I came up racing motocross. Like, I've broken more things than I care to mention. And, like, I did that growing up, kind of similar. Watching someone do that for drifting is kind of, like, strange to me. Like, I can't believe, like, putting a kid in a car before age 16 just seems like an uncouth thing to do.
Dude, but you can't say that.
I'm not, hey, listen,
Yeah. It just
I'm
seems,
stoked on it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, don't even, like, take it the wrong way. I'm just saying, like, when you see, like, a kid in a car that has never driven on the road, but you're throwing him on a racetrack, like, that's something.
That's
you
awesome.
know? That's progression. That's good for the sport too. You know, I think seeing this stuff coming up, there's a couple guys in Europe. I've been linked to a couple of videos since working with the Sorensens that show. There's a couple guys in Ireland and in Europe that, you know, they're 12, 13 years old, and they're, in BMW cars built by HGK and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen a kid drive an HGK E46.
Yeah, that's
Nicola. Nicola, yeah.
Yeah, he's a part of HGK or involved with some of them. But yeah, he's 11, 12 years old. And it's literally a replication of Christoph's car that's a built LS3.
You go back in time far enough, this kid started drifting when he was like 17, 16 years old, right?
Right.
His email address, I shouldn't say what his email address is, but his stigma name for a long time was, before Project Commission issues, was the drifting kid. And like Pat Mordaunt and others that have come up from that, have seen the drifting community from a very young age and been very successful before the fear factor, before you start, woeing over financial aid and everything else that goes with it, just being, a happy-go-lucky kid ready to put the pedal to the metal, So that's a cool new twist on what's going on, and to see them petition to like NASA and really take this really seriously, like puts a big impact with me. I've always wondered, like, how long is it going to be before when I grew up, I used to see those like 80s guys with like the old Camaros, and I'd be like, man, what is wrong with this like stupid old guy with his stupid Camaro? Like, get over it, old guy. You're old. Sooner or later, I'm going to live to be the old guy with the 1J BMW trying to beat up on all the kids with their Teslas or whatever the hell comes up next.
Yep.
And that's going to be me. I feel like I'm dedicated and locked in an era, and I'm scared that if I progress in this industry any further at times, that it's going to end up just like falling off the edge.
You look at
and then I see these kids come up.
Well,
and
here's
I'm
the
like,
other thing: is you look at progression of any sport. You know what I mean? It's like you look at basketball when it was originating. You look at golf when it was originating. It's typically a bunch of older gentlemen who came up with an idea and started creating it, and then once it started getting in trend, then you get the youngsters finally coming in years and years and years down the road. Which that's what progressed the sport. Is now you have a tradition or a evolution of players now. So when the old one fades out, you have the new ones coming in. And it's finally getting to a point where drifting is able to get the youngsters developing themselves. So when they do turn 16 and they can get their license, they're going to be in it. They're prepared. Because think about if we just had a bunch of old guys constantly jumping and drifting, it would, they would last for 2-3 years and they'd go away.
And that's it too, and a lot of what keeps drifting young, and I don't think you guys realize this, and I want to give a mad love shout out to my homie Rory at Big Country Labs.
Yeah.
Because style is important in drifting.
Right.
And there ain't nothing like having a big wing.
That's
so love you, Rory. Thanks for coming from Australia to hang out with me in Vegas. I appreciate it.
Well, on that note, I think it's safe to say we'll end with that final quote. But thank you guys for coming out here and spending some time with Paco and I, stopping by the HQ. Awesome job yesterday at Vegas Drift. And once again, shout out to Vegas Drift for allowing us to come out there, be a part of the show. The other thing that we want to do is we want to thank our Patreons. You guys are obviously allowing us to keep out on the tracks and getting out and going to these special events. You will see us at Irwindale coming up. Brian was ready to fire up. Was I taking too long, Brian? Come on, bud. We'll see us at Irwindale. Obviously, AM Intakes. Those guys are another huge supporter of the show. Can't thank them enough. McLeod Drivetrain, McLeod Clutches. Thank you guys. But Paco, we can find you at Tofo Drifan, 2F Performance. Matt, your infamous Instagram name.
Project Commitment Issues.
Project Commitment Issue. And Garrett, where can we find you now in case we have tons of technical questions?
You don't want to follow me.
Garrett Nuts.
We do.
Is that what it? What is
Garrett Nuts is the catchphrase.
The other one?
The phrase that pays.
It is. It is at Garret Nuts.
And then you could follow us, obviously, at Maximum Driftcast, myself, Corey Hosford. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Paco?
Thank you guys. Thanks for taking a little bit of your time. I know you guys have to drive back to Vegas, so thanks for
That's not what you told me. You told me you were going to get me drunk.
Okay,
Yep.
well, we'll figure that
Well,
out.
that's a good time to get it. Big balls.
So-
Thanks again, dude.
Thanks, Brian, and send
we'll
us to the
Send us out with a keyboard, cat.
There we go. Yeah, some keyboard cat for the credits. And all right, guys, have a good night. Thanks a lot for tuning in.